Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So in today's video we're going to make very simple to-do list. Now first we are going to design it using Tailwind, and then we are going to implement it using first by React and then by Vue.js. Now if anybody is interested in vanilla JavaScript to-do list, then you can check the description for the tutorial on how to do that. We have implemented it using pure JavaScript and stored it to local storage and Firebase database. So if anybody is interested in that video, then they can check the description. Okay, so let's get on with this video. So in this video, we are going to make this app in two phases. So the first phase, we are going to complete the UI using Tailwind CSS, and followed by we will be implementing it in JavaScript. So let's begin with the to-do list. So now before we start with the to-do list, let me just give you a quick peek at how the app is going to uh, look and feel. Okay, so now here is the app. So if you check, it's a very basic simple app. Now if you see, there is a table with some stats of how much to-dos are there, pending and completed, and if you click on this checkbox, that particular to-do will be marked complete. If you want to add new items, you can just add it over here, and that gets added over here. Okay, and if you want to delete a particular to do, then you just have to click on this delete button, and that gets deleted. Now if you want to delete an item directly, then you also have an option to double click and delete it. So that's also something that we're going to implement. Okay, so that is it about the app. Now let's start building it. So let's begin. So I have opened a empty folder, and on this folder I'm going to create a file, index.html, and let's add some boilerplate, and here let's call it let's give it a title called to do list. Simple. Now once this is done, because this is going to be implemented using Tailwind, we need to have Tailwind added. So I have a code snippet for Tailwind CDN. So if you want, you can get it from their Tailwind website. I have already created a Tailwind snippet. So if you are interested in finding out how to create a snippet, then you can check out my video. The card must be popping up. So now once you have added the CDN, now we are ready to start with the development. So just to check, let's add an H1 and let's say hello, and let's save it. And now let's look at the preview of how this looks. Now I have an extension called live server already installed, so I will just right click on the file and open it with live server. Now this will open the page, and you can see this is how it looks. Perfect, nothing fancy. So I will just keep this side by side so that we can work. Okay, so this is what we have. Now that is it. That is what we require. Now I will just zoom it a little so that it's easier for us to work with it. Okay, so this is fine. Now let's begin styling it. Okay, so the first thing I have already first thing that I do is usually lay out the elements. Okay, so let me pull up a reference image so that we can keep it handy for our development. So now what I usually prefer is adding first adding the elements and then styling it. So let's quickly add the elements, HTML elements that we will be requiring. So first of all, let's start with a container. So let's add a container which is going to host everything, the entire app. Now inside this container, I'm going to have the first div is going to have an h1 tag, which will be having to do list. That is the title of the app. Now next I want to have a div which is going to house the form. So let's add a div, and inside this we will have a form. And let me just remove the action from here, and let me close the form. And inside this form I need two things. One, I need a form element, and I need a button. So let's add a element, and I need a button, right? So for the time being, let's just put it like this, or even better, yeah, this is fine. So this is going to be my form. Next, I need another div which is going to house my to-dos. Okay, now for this to-dos, I will have the first div which is going to have the title. Let's call it h1, let's say to-dos. Okay, so that is going to be to-dos, and then I'm going to have a small tag which is going to say to-dos pending, comma, one completed. Okay, cool. So this is going to be my stats. Then I'm going to have another div which is going to house my table. So this table is going to have a table head. The table head is going to have three columns. So there is the number. Then I need to have details of the to-do task, and then action. Cool. So this is going to be my head, and finally I need body. Body is going to have let's add td, duplicate, and let's say learn React. Okay, and here I will have to have few buttons. So let's have a button. Let's have an X button, and let's have another, let's say check. Okay, so let's call it C for the time being. Okay, so these are two buttons that I'm going to have, and then let's close it. Once this is closed, I will duplicate this few times. Okay, and that is going to be my final result. Okay, so that is it for my HTML elements. So now I'm ready to style it. So let's begin styling. So the first thing that I do is style the body. So for the body, I need, so this entire app is somewhat orange themed. So let's start with the background color. So let's give it BG orange. So now if you because we have not yet set up the Tailwind config file, so that's why the type hinting is not working. So what you do is whenever you're working with Tailwind CSS, it's a good idea to have Tailwind Tailwind CSS IntelliSense installed. Okay, so once this is installed, what you do is you have to create this file, Tailwind config file. Okay, so this is very important for this software to give IntelliSense, right? So I will create that now. So I will add that file, and inside this you have to add certain code. So I will open this from the Tailwind CSS. I will copy this part and paste it over here. That's it. Okay, and now I don't need this, so I will come back, and here it is expecting it to be the source to be inside the src folder, but we have it directly, so I will remove that. and that's it. So this is how it is to be done. That's it. Now I can try it out again. So let's give the class bg, and now here you go. So here you start getting the hints. Perfect. So now let's give orange, let's say orange 300, and there you go. So there you get the color. Now I want everything to be centered, so I will make it flex. Then I want it justify center, so it is horizontally centered and vertically centered. So I will say items center, and item center only works if the body has an height. So let's give it a height of screen. Perfect. So now everything is centered. So now let's work on the inner div. So for this inner div, let's give it a class and give it a width of full, so that it span sorry, height, not height, width full. So it will now expand everything. So it is going to expand the entire div, but I also want margin on the left and right. So let's say I give a little bit margin on both sides. Yeah. So once that is done, now I can come to the to-do list, that is the h1 tag. And first of all, for this div, I will say text center, so that everything is in the center. Then for the title of the app, I will say text 3xl, so that it looks, I think 5xl will be better. Yeah. So to-do list, and I also want it to be uppercase. Okay, and I want it to be bold. Okay, yeah, perfect. And now because I need a little breathing space, I will say margin bottom of 5. Perfect. So that is done with my title of the app. Now let's come and design the form. So for the form, let's take a reference from our design. So the form doesn't have much of the things, so we just want it to be centered, right? So let's do that. So let's style the form first. So let's do class, and in the class I will just make it flex, because I want the button and the input element to be next to each other. So let's make it flex, so that brings them together. I also want it justify center, so that brings it to the center. And now what I want is, I want let's style the input element. So let's give it a class, and now for this element, let's give let's look at the design. So in the design we have a background of somewhat orange, so let's do that. So let's see bg orange, let's say 100, and I think that is it. Now I also need padding, px of, let's say 2. So I think a little more. Yeah. And I want y padding of 2. Perfect. So now I have a little bit of padding. Now I think on the x-axis I need more. Okay, that is okay. And now I want rounded on the left side. I want full. Okay, perfect. So now I have rounded buttons. Then what I need next is, let's come over here, let's style the button. So for this I need an orange color. Orange, let's say 800. 800 is too much, so let's say 600. Yeah, 600 is, I think, no, even lower. Let's do 500. Yeah, so 500 is what I want. And now I need a little padding. So let's add a little padding on px of around, let's say, 5. And I think that is perfect. Now I want rounded but on the right side, so I will add uh, rounded and on the right side. Okay, perfect. Now I want to replace this. I don't want input element. I want a button here because I want to add an svg over here. So let me just take this from here and add that class to this button and remove this from here. Okay, now once I have this, now the advantage here is I can now add an icon over here. So for that, let's go to hero icons and let's get plus icon. Okay, so this is what I need. So copy svg, paste it over here, and there you go. So I have now the svg. Okay, perfect. Now save it. Let's look at the svg. Perfect. Now I just want to, if you look at it, I have a white color, so let's make it white. So let's say text white, and there you go. So now I have a text white. Now one more thing I notice is the placeholder text is also orange, so enter to do must be orange color. So let's handle that. So let's come over here and I can say placeholder, placeholder, I can say orange, let's say 200. Let's see how it looks. Let's go for 400. Yeah, 400 is better. Perfect. So now I have my form styled. So let's move to the next part. So the next part is this div, which is actually the app itself, where all the div is getting shown. So let's style that. So the first thing that I see is the background. So bg white. So the first thing that I see is the background is completely white, I suppose. Yes. So bg white. Then the second thing is I should have enough margin from the top. So margin top of, let's say, 5, and that gives me enough margin. And I also need a little gap from the white border, so that there is the contents inside are little separated from the border. So let's add a padding of, let's say, 3 all around. That is perfect. I think I will increase it a little more. Yeah, so 4, a padding of 4 is good. And now I also need a rounded large, so that gives me a little rounded border. And also I need shadow. Cool. So now I have a shadow also. So I think that is it for the container. So our container is ready. Now it's time for the to style the title. So let's add that text large and font bold. Perfect. And I think that is it. Now let's style the text. So text extra small. So I want it to be a very small text, and let's call it inline block and margin top of 0. And I also want margin bottom to be 0. Okay, so I think there is a leading letter spacing, so let's say leading none. Yeah, so that gap was there, so that is gone now. So that is my to-dos. Okay, so let's come back and let's look at now the font. I want it a little lighter, so let's take text gray and let's go for text gray 600. Yeah, that is better. Now I think that is it for our to do. Let's go 800. Yeah. And now let's come to the table design. So the final piece is the table. So let's work on that. So the table should extend the entire width of the element. So let's give it a full width. So that gets like this. And this div, let's give it a class and give it a margin top so that there is a little space between the to-dos and the table, and a top of 3. And now let's style the heading of our table. So for the table heading, I will come over here and let's give it a BG orange of, let's say, 500. Okay, so that is good. And now let's add the classes over here and let's give it text center, and I want a padding y of at least 2, so that the heading looks a little bigger. And I think that is it. So this will be it for the class of the first row. Let's paste the same thing on both the other headings, and for this the text will be left and alignment will be left, and there will be padding of 2. Similarly for this, the text will be I think we will keep it left. Let's keep it left, and the padding will be also 2. Okay, next I also want, let me add multiple cursors, and let's or else we can put the font over here. So text white. So let's create the font to be white. I think it's white over here. No, it is not white, it is orange 100, I suppose. Yes. Okay, or even 50. Yeah, so this is fine. So that is my text, and I have the things perfectly designed. Now one more thing left is the border. So I want the rounded large, but only on the top. Okay, so let's see why it is not working. So I have rounded class applied to tr. I suppose we cannot do this, so we will have to do it over here. So let's see, rounded lg, but on the top right, or sorry, top left. Yeah, so that works now. Now the same thing I will apply on the last element, but top right. Perfect. So this gives me that rounded corner table which is there in the design. Perfect. So now we have finished our table design for the table header. Now let's finish up the last part, that is the body. Now for the body, it's going to be very simple. We will design only the first one and the rest will automatically work out. So let's first design the colors. So first of all, the tr, so let's give it bg orange 100. So that is going to be the color, and it is also going to have, it is actually going to have two colors. If we come over here, it is alternating. So it is having an alternate color scheme. So let's tackle that. So um, we want bg orange, and we also need bg orange 50. So we need two colors, but one should be in odd. So I will add the odd flag in one of them, and the other I will add even. So now what happens is, on the odd rows, orange 100 will be applied, and on the even rows, orange 50 will be applied. Okay, perfect. So now let's try it out. So let's duplicate this a few times and let's save it, and let's look at the output. Perfect. So you can see I get the uh, perfect alternating colors. Okay, so now what next? So next I want the color of the font to be slightly different. So let's remove this. So this is been handled. So let's tackle the remaining parts. So now I want the text orange. I think it's 600 or maybe even 700. Yeah, 700 is the correct value, I suppose. So now I have that out of the way. Now now if we look at the design, there is equal padding that in the rows also. So let's add padding on that. So let's add a class for this, and let's add a padding of y of 2. Perfect. So now it looks much better. Then I will copy this on both of the other cells, and now I want, for the first cell, I want text to be centered. Perfect. And for the other two, I want the text to be left. Okay, so this is going to be left, and this is also going to be left. Perfect. So that is it, I guess. Yes, now few more things are left that we will tackle. First of all, we need icons for these buttons, so let's tackle that. So let's go to hero icons, and we need a button for uh, check. Yeah, so this is what I need. So let's add that. Okay, and then I also need a button for I think times, or yeah, cancel. Okay, so cancel, and I also need one for trash. So let's say delete. Do I have something? Yeah, delete. I will copy this trash button and put it over here. Okay, let's check it out. Yeah, perfect. So these are the three icons that I will be requiring for making it active or inactive, or right. So that will do. Now one more thing I require is a little bit of padding everywhere, because it looks like it is very close to each other. So let's add a little padding everywhere. So let's add px of 2 also, or in fact let's add p of 2 everywhere, so that there is a common padding everywhere. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah, so that will be better. Perfect. Okay, so now this looks much better. So I think that is it. Now let me try to resize, and if you look at it over here, this is a little wrong because it is extending a little too much. I don't want that. So let's tackle that. Okay, so there are two things I would like to do. First of all, let's go to the main container where we have mentioned it as a width of full, and here I will say max width of, let's say, 2xl. Okay, so it will not extend above 2xl. Perfect. So this is my maximum to do size. Perfect. Second thing that I want to do is I want the the details column to be a little bit bigger than the others. So I will come over here, and in the details I will say width full, so that now it takes up enough space. Now obviously this is fine. Now this buttons are going to create a mess. Now to handle that, we will come to the section where the buttons are, and we will add a flex over there, so that they all come next to each other. Perfect. Now once we have the flex buttons, we also need a little gap between the buttons. So let's add a gap of, let's say, 2, and now this is, I think, better. This is looking much better, and now our all our contents are on the extreme ends, and it is looking somewhat near. Now in the original design, I had the elements aligned towards the left of the window, and I did not have the full width, but I think this is much better, so that the content have space for the display. Okay, so anyway, that is it. Now there are few more things left that is to be done, that I will show you once we duplicate this a few more times, then we will tackle that. Okay, so I will duplicate this. So I have duplicated this around 6 or 7 times, and now two things are left. The first thing is we want to have an active state. So I will make one of them, the first one, active. So for having the active state, I will remove the bg orange from here, and instead of bg orange, I will keep it bg green, and let's keep it 100. Okay, so this is going to be my active state. Second, if it is active, I also want one more thing, that is going to be line through. Okay, so if I do line through, that means that particular uh, to do has been striked out. Okay, so that will be my active state, active or completed state. Okay, so if any of the to dos are completed, then I am going, this is the way it is going to be styled. So this is one thing that I wanted to tackle. And the final and the last part of it is what happens if there are a lot of to dos. Okay, so let's tackle that. Now right now we only have very few to dos, so let me duplicate this. Okay, so let me duplicate and show you what will happen if I have a lot of to dos. So now you can see if I have a lot of to dos, then our UI fails. Okay, so because we have added a screen, height of the screen, so that will result in a UI issue, right? So how to tackle that? Now to tackle that, you will come to the table. So let's come to the table. So the table is inside a div, right? So this particular div, in this div, we are going to have a class which is going to be overflow x, sorry, overflow y, let's call it auto. Okay, so once we do that, and now what we have to do is we want to have a height, a maximum height to this. Okay, so max height of, let's say let's say if we have a height of 10, what will happen? So this is very small, let's give it a height of 60. Okay, so if I give a max height of 60, then you can see I get this scroll over here, and this solves our UI problem. Okay, so you can increase this to, let's say, 80. So after 80, height of 80, the scroll will appear. Okay, so and the best part is, so if I remove few to dos, I will remove few of the to dos so that we can see how it looks. So let's remove all these to dos, and if I save it, now you see there is no scroll bar because it is not extending the design, right? But if I try to add, okay, obviously now I cannot add it right now anything because it is not yet functional. But once I add something, then you will see that if I add a few more rows, so let's add one more row, immediately I get a scroll bar. Perfect. Okay, so this is what is the final design that we're working on. So I hope this video was informative. Now in the next part of this video, we'll be making or basically implementing this in Vue.js and React.js both. Okay, thank you everyone.